minutes into 2 p.m. And yes, and that means exactly 19 minutes onto this 3. But yes, we're going to be doing this right now. I did tell you a while back that we were going to be having a conversation with our friends from the Bridge Leadership Foundation. And yes, like I told you, like clockwork, they are here and we're ready to have that very interesting information conversation with our friend here. And yes, I'm going to be introducing my two of the guests that I have in the building right about now. And yes, two amazing people who, I mean, by every metric, they have really accomplished everything that they possibly would like to accomplish in their sector. And that's why they're here, okay? The Bridge only gives us the best. So yeah, shout out to the Bridge Leadership Foundation also for coming through with the guests. Oh yes, today, I mean, I don't know what a coincidence. I was talking about reading, and the conversation today is going to be about literacy, because literacy is about reading. And we're going to be having a conversation around innovative approaches to literacy. And the emphasis is how leaders can foster a love for reading, because I know, a lot of people don't like reading. They'd just rather watch it on YouTube or other things like that. So, yes, that's the conversation that we're going to be having. And first, I'm going to dive right on to introduce my first guest in the building right about now. I have the privilege of welcoming to the Hit Drive Time show for this very important conversation, Mrs. Uwalaka Emmanuel, who is the co-founder of Calabar Children's Book and Empowerment Club. Well, welcome to the Hit Drive Time show, ma'am.
Thank you.
Welcome to the Hit Drive Time show, and also here with me, Mr. Wafai Usang. Welcome to the Hit Drive Time show. Go ahead and say hello to the Hit Drive Time family.
Hi everyone, thank you very much.
Welcome to the Hit Drive Time show. So yes, we're here again because we usually have this conversation around a bunch of things. We talk about literacy, we talk about things regarding young people. And I just played that Gen Z song, and I would like to dive into your take on whether you think, first off, we're going to talk about a lot more things, but do you think Gen Z likes reading as much as other people? You know Gen Z, you know who I'm talking about, right?
Yeah, I do.
So, yeah, I'm going to start with that. Why do you think, if you think that they don't like reading, why do you think Gen Z like reading as much as, earlier generations?
Well,
Based on your own
okay,
experience, of course.
personally, I haven't carried out any research
Okay.
to know if that's true or not. But personally, I think that, the way technology has evolved, the advent of technology, and then the medias that we have currently, there's so much distraction out there. So I don't think that these platforms, would allow young persons in that age category,
Mhm.
the distractions are too much. They are way, way too much. Let me give an instance. Uh, on average, the human the human attention span is between 4.5 minutes to 5 minutes. But if we're having platforms like TikTok displaying videos that are just 30 seconds or a minute, it is sort of reducing that attention span of individuals who are up on those sites to watch those videos. So personally, what I would say is this is from mere speculations, from what I've heard from people and from the little observations I've made in society. Gen Zs do not have the tendencies to read
Okay. Yeah.
as much
Okay.
as
Okay. Point made. Shots taken. I don't want. To, I don't want.
millennials and
I
baby boomers.
I
Yeah,
don't want to have problems with my Gen Z listeners right now, so they think that we're being
with all due
partial.
respect.
Please, with all due respect, of course. If you're listening to the Hit Drive Time show, my name is Fortune, and I have two very interesting guests in the building right now, and we're talking about innovative approaches to literacy, and that's the reason why I just asked Mr. Wafai, Mr. Usang, right now what he thinks about Gen Z's reading or literacy ability. But yes, he did not take any shots at anybody. He was just trying to explain. Okay, let me just clear the air out. So yes, Mr. Wafai is the head of programs. Paragons, right? Paragons Leadership
Yeah.
Initiative. And I also have in this building Mrs. Uwalaka Emmanuel, who's the co-founder of Calabar Children's Book and Empowerment Club. Welcome to the Hit Right Down Show. Of course, this is courtesy of the Bridge Leadership Foundation. So I'm going to move on to Mrs. Emanuela. Welcome to the Hit Right Down Show, ma'am.
Thank you so much.
Okay, so I'm not going to ask you the Gen Z question, but I know, there are many other questions that people on the other side would like to, ask you. But the first one I want to ask you, as based on your own particular specialization, what inspired you to become an advocate for literacy and reading in Nigeria or around this place?
All right. Thank you so much. I work with young people. I've taught for about 12 years and I hang out a lot with young people. And I discovered that the kind of exposure they ought to have based on the opportunities they have right now is not there. And when you put, in fact, let me tell you something that happened sometime that greatly inspired me. I was privileged to be with this young lady, a young mother, and she went to the hospital. Her child was sick. She went to the hospital, they gave her prescription. They just put the dosage, no further instructions, but every other instruction was written on the label of that medication. She got home and the instruction was supposed to be to, put water, it was a suspension, put water to a certain level marked on the bottle. She got home, she didn't bother to read anything, she didn't do anything. She was giving this child the powdered medication same way. So after 2 days, there was no improvement. And I said, no, this child should have improved. There should have been remarkable improvement if you were administering this medication properly. Only for me to discover that she didn't bother reading anything. She was just giving the child like that. She said the doctor didn't tell her. I said, but you have the label. Even when the doctor tells you, why can't you just read? Why can't you read? You have the privilege of being literate. Why can't you utilize that privilege? And I see a lot of such things. Even where I work, you put out information there, even parents, they don't bother to read. They're asking you the very same thing contained in the information you have put out. So it became very worrisome to me. And I felt, okay, if we've lost it with the adults, maybe we should start something with the children. Let's revive, because I know what the kind of exposure I got from reading. At least I know a little bit of everything, just because I read everything. I read just about everything. So I felt, okay, we can get the children, to start with the children. Let's see if we can get it right. If we can get at least a little percentage of the children to read, maybe things will change for the better. Thank you.
Okay, there it is. Mrs. Emanuela has just spoken about why she decided to go into this sector. And yes, I'm going to move on to ask Mr. Osang this question because you mentioned something very, very important
Okay.
while you were trying to, explain
Yeah.
the whole Gen Z
Yeah.
issue at reading. What would you say the role or the impact of technology has been on literacy rates in this part of the world? Not just for young people, for basically most people per se. What would you say the impact, according to your own understanding, what would you say the impact of technology
Okay.
has been?
Well, there is a twist to all of this. Why some persons may agree that the advent of technology has brought many opportunities for, well, not just young people, the entire populace, right? There are other persons who would think that technology as well poses many challenges, like the one I mentioned earlier. How that, of course, young persons would, anybody at all would find pleasure having fun rather than going through some boring book or some boring article on the internet, right? So I think that there are so many opportunities that technology has brought. The persons who have the hindsight and foresight to realize that, oh, this is what technology has brought for us. The fact that I can hop on free sites to read books, or to utilize tools like ChatGPT and the others to do my assignments, and to create content for those who are content creators who have pages on the internet, on social media, to leverage these opportunities to get the results that they want. So I think that there's a twist to it. So the advantages are there, the disadvantages are there as well.
Okay, there you have it. The advantages and disadvantage are there. But I would say, do you consider technology to be one of the biggest challenges facing literacy today, both globally and in our communities specifically? Do you think it's right up there in the top five of the biggest challenges to
Absolutely,
literacy?
absolutely, I
Okay,
think
what
so.
would you say will make it to your top five of the biggest challenges to literacy in our communities in Nigeria as a whole?
Well, there is technology, which is top of the list, and then there is the negligence of parents to help foster a reading habit, foster yeah, a reading habit among children. I remember growing up, there were some stories that my mom would read to me to inspire me to read, right? Stories from there's this book by um, ah, there's this literature book by a famous writer. My mom, the inspiration my mom would give us back
Yeah.
then, my siblings and I, would be to not read per se, but to quote. She would quote at least 5 pages per night, maybe 3 times a week, just to inspire us. She'll be like, you guys are so late. There's light, there's fun for you. In my time, there was these opportunities were not there. So she would literally quote 5 pages of these books to us, and it inspired us. Inspired, gave us the push to, to focus on academics, focus on the things that we had, in our hands to do. And then I think that the next the next factor that has brought this challenge, that has brought this gap, is the fact that certain communities do not have actors who push for literacy. For instance, in Finland and then in Singapore, there are most libraries there than anywhere in the world, because they understand the importance of, you know giving young persons, well, not just young persons, the public, the opportunities to access books, and in most cases for free.
Hmm.
But let me stop there.
Yeah,
let,
I
let
know
me give
most
just
schools. I know most schools around. While I was still in high school, most schools. I don't know about now. Most schools had libraries. Okay, always
yeah,
had stock libraries. You go to the library. You just it's like a kid in a candy store to people who like to read. But I know that there were a lot of my friends who never made it there unless they were forced to go to the library.
okay,
But yes, I mean, I understand what you're saying, and that those challenges because most people would rather just scroll on TikTok, scroll on
yeah,
Facebook, entertain themselves rather than open a book. Because I personally have a preference for hardcover books, reading hardcover books
I
than I
do too.
do
Yeah.
for reading online because there's so many distractions. But yeah, I'm gonna get to that, of course. But I want to move on to this question, and I'll direct this one to Mrs. Emanuela on the other side. But otherwise, 54 minutes gone past 2. If you're listening right now, you are listening to the Hit Drive Down Show, of course, courtesy of our friends from the Bridge Leadership Foundation. We're having a very, very interesting conversation in commemoration of World Literacy Day. And yes, we're doing that with our guest in the studios, courtesy of the Bridge Leadership Foundation. And today's topic, of course, is titled Innovative Approaches to Literacy, How Leaders Can Foster a Love for Reading. Now, that is the question I want to direct exactly the way it's read to Mrs. Emanuela, who's on the other side. So, Mrs. Emanuela, I would like to, get your take on what you think leaders, what you think, not just political leaders, even religious leaders. What role do you think they can play in, making the case for reading in the country and especially in the city of the state and the city of Calabar? Go ahead, ma'am.
All right. I would like to begin from the family because that's the basics. Now, parents are leaders. If parents start reading to their children, even before the children can read by themselves, it will go a long way in encouraging the children to love books. So parents should make it a point of duty. I'm not let's just start from the beginning, from the home. Parents should get their children to have interest in reading because just like what you earlier said, if you have libraries everywhere and the children don't even have interest to read, you will be wasting your time, just like what happens now. So it should begin from the home. Let's start from the home. As leaders, as parents who are the first leaders of these children, what are we doing? Start reading to the children on time. Let books, litter books, surround them with books everywhere. When they turn to this side, they see books. When they turn here, they see books. And that love for book will grow. And then come to schools. Schools too are where children are exposed and where they have opportunity to do certain things. And but unfortunately these days, that I work in a school and you come to school in the morning, close by 3 o'clock, 4 o'clock, and the children just manage to have 30 minutes break in between. The curriculum is so filled. So you hardly have time to even say, okay, children should read for pleasure. Because when I'm talking about reading, I'm advocating for pleasure reading, voluntary reading. So there is even no time. The children are so loaded. The curriculum is so loaded. The timetable is so loaded. Even when the children go home, they hardly find time to read something else because there is this assignment to do or there is that assignment to do. So I think if there's a way to, and if we check what we do, there are so many irrelevant things, that can't even solve the problems of this century. So those things can be sieved, and let the relevant things be left so that there will be time for important things to do. And then if you check around us here, you hardly find libraries. When I was growing up during holiday, we used to go to the libraries. You have access to books that your parents can buy everything. But these libraries, are they functioning? If they are functioning and you go there, you won't even want to sit down. Dust covered everywhere, archaic books, and all that. So if there's a way to get the libraries to work, make it cozy, make it digital, make it comfortable, and people can walk in and relax and read and have access to other information, both um, offline and online. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mrs. Emanuela. Of course, she is the co-founder of Calabar Children's Book and Empowerment Club, and she's just been trying to make a case for why kids should read. It's very very important what she says, because I remember while I was still in school, and your whole bag would be filled with assignments, or filled with like math textbooks and all those things. And at the end of the day, you see a lot of kids who don't have enough time to settle down and read one full book because they were too busy doing assignments, too busy doing other things. So yes, I understand that point. Also in the studio, I have Mr. Wafai Usang, who is the head of programs, Paragon's Leadership Initiative, and we're talking about innovative approaches to literacy. Now I'm going to direct this one to Mr. Usang, who's on this other side. What are some of the innovative approaches to literacy that you can come up with off the top of your head for people who are listening, that they could sort of practice so that the case for literacy is going to be improved on?
All right. Mrs. Emanuela did say something about parents fostering a love for reading amongst their kids. Well, I think that in most cases parents do that mechanically. There is a way to sort of make it automatic. I remember reading a book once, and the writer said the way that one of the initiatives he employed to make it a reality in his kids was to tie it to a reward, right? He gives his kids a book per week and asks them something that he knows that they would hardly do on their own, even though they love books, right? But they would hardly finish that book in 7 days on their own. So he would tie it to a reward. If you're able to finish this book, I'm going to buy you, whatever the kid asks for, or give you maybe $100 bill, right? As the case may be. So I think that if parents, this is speaking to come down to the family level, if parents can sort of tie these tasks that they give their kids to improve, to foster that habit of reading and literacy amongst the kids, I think it will go a long way. And also, I said something about having to have libraries in communities. I don't know how many communities there are in Calabar, but I know there are clans in Calabar. If clan heads, can partner, if we can have organizations, clan heads come together, the government come together, different individuals come together, they can have a partnership to establish public libraries, and as she said, make them cozy, make them very comfortable, and different age groups as well. If you have to come to a point, if you want to become a leader, maybe the secretary of that age group or the president or something, let's tie it to a reward that has a link with literacy. Read so and so books. You're able to summarize them. You're able to give. You're able to tell us what you learned from it. I think it will go a long way as well. And then another thing, something else that we can do to foster um, a habit of reading and literacy in the society is to establish book clubs as well. I was part of a book club, and it was what fostered, to some degree, my love for reading. Right. So I think book clubs would go a long way as well.
Hmm. That was really interesting that you mentioned that because book clubs are something that I found very scarce in this part of the world. I don't know, maybe I'm not in that community, but I'm sure there exist ones, but probably not as big as other ones. So I know book clubs all around the world where they get the writer in the room, the people who read the books, and I think this will be very helpful when it comes to literacy. But yes, we are right now talking about literacy, and some people are on the other side asking, please, what this literacy you're talking about? What does it mean? I don't know if people know what it means to be illiterate or literate. Could you just expand on what literacy means so people can get clear understanding of what it is, Mr. Hussein? Go ahead.
Absolutely. Well, from the dictionary definition, we would find that literacy is one's ability to read and write, right? But literacy spans beyond just the ability to read and write. Literacy in a broader spectrum is education. And what is education? Education is the platform that affords individuals the opportunity to read, to be able to write, to communicate effectively, to think constructively, and be able to use the results that they get from writing, from reading, and from learning to contribute to societal change. So yeah, literacy is beyond just reading and writing. It's your capacity to be educated.
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Osan, for that. So I'm going to direct this question to Mrs. Emanuela right now. And you are the co-founder of you work a children's in the children's book sector, basically. And I want to ask basically your own experience, ma'am. So I'm going to be directing this one at your own experience because I know that there are cases where, say, for example, a child who is blind or a child who is physically impaired in one way or another, I would say, what steps do you think can be taken, whether it's by government or government parastatals or whether it's by agencies? What step do you think they can take to make literacy programs inclusive and accessible to people with disabilities or people who are in marginalized communities? Because I'm sure there are a lot of communities you go, even just in the city of Calabar here, that you find the kids do not know how to read. They don't know how to write their A's. They don't know how to spell words and all those things. I would say, ask you directly based on your own expertise, what role do you think they can play to ensure that it is inclusive to people, even blind people, so blind people who are disadvantaged can read, whether it's through Braille or any other ways? Please go ahead, ma'am. The mic is yours.
Okay, so we have audiobooks, and the World Literacy Foundation, they've been at the forefront of promoting literacy through technology. You know, there are several apps, text to speech apps, audiobooks that can help those who are visually impaired to also have access to book, even through the use of the braille, and to enable them to read. I haven't worked with people who are visually impaired, or I've not been opportunity to work in such with such people, but I know there are such technology, you know, assistants to them to be able to um, read and all that. Those things are available. So government can still make it more available, because I also know there are lots of people with visual impairments and other impairments who don't have access to these things. So, and if we can have more organizations, if we can have the government, make these provisions accessible to these people, it will go a long way, because a lot don't have access to them. So these are things they can come up with to assist, especially people who are vulnerable, people in low income communities, so that they can have access.
Okay, thank you very much, Mrs. Emanuela. I'm going to direct this one to you, Mr.
Okay.
Osan. So go ahead.
Oh,
The
the very
question,
same
yes, the
question.
same question I asked because I want to get your take.
Well, I couldn't agree more with her. I think we're on the same page. There are certain technologies, affordable technologies that can be leveraged to help people with disabilities, access information, like some apps that are built in certain devices to help with that. There are audiobooks as well, as she rightly said, audiobooks that these individuals can access, can use to do their learnings, to get whatever information they have to get. And then there's this innovation that I saw some time ago, a time ago, when I think it was a TEDx talk. I saw Cobhams, Mr. Cobhams. I saw some I don't know, it's not digital, some technology he was using his fingers to go over them. I think that works as well. Government may not have the right fundings, the amount to provide digital tools such as devices that can audio devices that can be sent and deployed to these individuals. But if they can have affordable tools like that, I think it will go a long way as well.
Okay, thank you very much for that one because I know how important just because a child has impairments or has disabilities doesn't mean that they should be excluded from literacy as well, which of course is not just the ability for you to read and write ABC, is also the ability for you to be educated on so many different criteria. But yes, I want to ask you this question, Mr. Osang, and I'll direct it also to Mrs. Emanuela
All right.
on the other side. We talked about Gen Z, but the people we have not talked about are the Generation Alpha. They keep giving them all these names. I don't know what they're called, the one after
Mhm.
them, maybe a Generation Omega. But yes, um,
Okay.
we've talked about Generation Z. We'll talk about Generation Alpha, the ones that are coming on. How can we, moving forward, how can we inculcate and ensure that the value for reading is 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 put in, you know, not
Okay.
forced in. Basically,
All right.
how can we encourage or how can we make the love for reading something that sticks to the generation coming, Generation
When
Alpha? What are some of the things that can be done personally, family wise,
okay.
government wise? Just generally, what are those things that people can do to make sure that the next generation coming up values literacy and reading as much as the ones before?
All right. When you talk about Generation Alpha, I'm not familiar with these words. So you're talking about kids who are probably
Basically, kids.
okay, kids,
Basically, kids.
right?
Yeah.
Okay. I read a book once. I think it was the book Mastery, right? In his opening statement in the introduction, Mr. Robert Greene gave an expose that was mind blowing. He said that if if generational sicknesses, certain illnesses can be transferred from mother to child, right? From grandparents to parents and then to children. And then if certain behavioral traits and characteristics, right, can be transferred transgenerationally, then knowledge can be transferred as well. That the things that we know now, they don't just stem from the things we read in book, observed in the environment, or learned in schools. Some of these things, a certain percentage of the knowledge that we have locked up in our subconscious, they came transgenerationally. So I think that parents should, I mean, we're coming down to the grassroots. Parents should themselves inculcate the habit of reading. When they say the best kind of leadership is a leadership where you get your hands, plunge your hands in the ground and do the work, so that those who your subordinates, when they see you, they'll be inspired to do that. It doesn't just have to do with the physical. As you read, you're transferring that habit down to your children. And then in our homes, we can do well to, like she said, ensure that everywhere there's a child savant program I watched in the UK some time ago. And then these kids, they've shown high levels of intelligence. In their rooms they have libraries, in the toilets they have libraries, in the kitchen, so you don't have excuse, you can read anywhere. So parents afford these kids the opportunity you know to access books anywhere they go, right? And I think it's very important for us to do that.
Yeah, I think you make a very, very great point, Mr. Olson. Thank you very much for that. Because I understand that people who are listening on the other side saying, "Oh, the economy is bad. How can we have to pay fees, buy school uniforms, buy all the textbooks? There isn't a lot left for us to take care
Yeah.
of these other things, like maybe buying extra books so that kids can read personally." What would you like to tell those parents particularly?
Behind everything that works is somebody making it work. If something is very important to you, you find a way to get it, right? If if you can't buy books, which I think is close to being impossible because
Okay.
books are very affordable in the market.
Okay.
Nobody talked me into buying books. I saw the need to buy right from when I was a teenager.
Mm.
The first book I read was Social Intelligence by Daniel Goleman. So parents can do well to get to the market and get books for their kids. They can start with novels. There are novels that go as low as for as low as 150 naira or 200 naira or 500 naira as the case may be, depending on the volume. So there's no excuse. There's no excuse to
Okay,
not
okay,
buying
okay.
books.
Interesting. Final words I'll take from you. The last one I'll ask you, what is your final message? What final message would you like to leave with listeners on the other side about how the importance of literacy and reading?
Literacy is at the core of development,
Okay.
whether it be social development, infrastructural development. Um, okay, let me take it from this angle. We know that um, everything Johnson Maxwell said in his book, The 360 Leader and the 21 Irrefutable Laws of Leadership. He said everything rises and falls on leadership. If the system is not working well, then we have to check the leaders. If something is not going right in the system, it all boils down to leadership, right? And then we know that the bedrock for the establishment of leadership is education. Leaders are people who know. They lead because they know the way. So I think that we have to get out on our ways, ensure that whether it's for ourselves or for the generation unborn, the generation that are after us, we have to make sure that, I mean, this is Nigeria, it's our nation. We have to put in our best, put in our efforts, everything that has to be done to ensure that, everyone gets on that track.
Okay, thank you very much. I'm going to ask this last question to Mrs. Emanuela on the other side. Final words, the final message you have for listeners about the importance of literacy and reading. Matt, go ahead.
Okay, I would like to encourage parents. I like to start from the grassroots. I would like to encourage parents to model reading to their children. Modeling. Most children learn from what you do rather than what you say. If you don't read, gist books with your children. It even helps with family bonding. If I want to get my child to read, what I do, I read the book and I start gisting her about the book. I bring it like a gist, I make it very interesting. The next thing you see her will be dragging the books. You say, oh, I want to read. I want to read. She will pick the book and read. So parents should model what they want to see in the children. But a lot of parents, I can tell you for free that even the book club I run is as if it's totally free. There is no fee attached to it. But it's as if you're begging people to come and read. You're begging people to come. Sometimes, even when you give the books free, they don't read. Parents should please model reading to the children. Read. Let them see you reading. When they see that you do it as something attractive, they will like to read. And when people read, they are well informed. When you don't read, you can't be well informed. You post something on social media, you snap a beautiful picture and you feel, oh, this picture is beautiful, let me put it out there. And someone is wishing you happy birthday. And you've clearly stated it there that it's not a birthday, it's not about birthday, you're just celebrating. And they're telling you happy birthday, happy birthday, happy birthday. Because they don't want to read. People are so lazy to read. Parents should please help the children. That's the only way we can save the next generation. Model reading to them, let them read. And when people read, they are well informed. When people are well informed, they think critically and they can make informed decisions that can help the society and help everyone at large.
Okay,
Thank
thank
you.
you very much, Mrs. Emanuela. I appreciate you for that one because you killed two birds with one stone. You talked about how we can ensure that the next generation catches on the ability to value literacy and reading. But yes, thank you very much, both of you, both of my guests in the studio, courtesy of the Bridge Leadership Foundation. I've been having a very wonderful conversation around reading and literacy with my guests, two of my guests in the building, Mr. Wofai Usang, who is the head of programs for Paragon Literacy Initiative. And I've also had Mrs. Uwalaka Emanuela, who is the co founder of Calabar Children's Book and Empowerment Club. Thank you, both of you, very much for being here And yes, thank you to the Bridge Literacy Foundation. This conversation was coming courtesy of them. The name has been was the innovative approaches to literacy, how leaders can foster a love for reading.